Set 8 is finally here and it has loads of new and amazing champions to play with. In order to reach those insane late game boards and crush your enemies, you're going to have to know how to play your best options in the early and mid game. So this is what today's video is all about. But before we jump into it, we do have a huge giveaway for you. Over the next 2 months, we will be giving away 6 Alienware gaming PCs to our community. This is one of the biggest giveaways we have ever hosted, so don't miss out on this opportunity. Click the link in the description to find out more. Back to TFT, and when choosing an early board, it's important to know whether you can go on a win streak or a lose streak. That's because a full streak results in a strong economy, which is something you're going to need regardless to set you up for the late game. A win streak is obviously the most optimal choice of the two, as it will keep you healthy and wealthy during the first stages of the game. But it's definitely not an easy task. Now because of this, you have to prioritize making your entire board stronger. That means playing synergies, units and items that will ultimately deal more damage to the entire enemy team. But you can always go on a lose streak, but it's not as bad as it sounds. Ideally though, you don't want to start bleeding out from the get-go to find yourself below 70 HP by the time Krugs comes around. When you want to lose streak without losing too much HP, you'll need to prioritize killing as many enemy units as possible, while still just about losing the fight. That means in the ideal case, you're going to lose the round but with only one enemy unit alive. Here we have a simple overview of units that not only have good synergies to build upon, but their abilities also deal AoE damage, making your board deal more damage to multiple units. If you get them 2-starred and add in strong standalone items too that can fit into any comp such as a Sunfire Cape, Ionic Spark or Static Shiv, you'll notice how win streaking will become much easier. On the other side we have units who deal excellent single target damage, which is ideal for lose streaking. That's because you'll shift your focus from killing the entire enemy team and winning to losing by killing as many single enemy units as you can to save as much health as possible. You also want to slam carry items rather than strong standalone items with something like a Gwynsu's Rageblade, Rabadon's Deathcap or even a Giant Slayer. Although if you do want to be on the safe side, simply scout your lobby, and if there's a player who hasn't slammed any items yet, you probably shouldn't either, or else you might win by accident and interrupt your lose streak. Speaking about items, since it's not in your power which item components you drop from minion rounds, there's another way to decide on what early game and item holder you can play for your carries. Now although every unit gets value from ability power in this set, there are still carries who simply prefer raw attack damage. Good and flexible AD item holders can be units like Ashe, Kayle, Fiora, Sivir, Yasuo or Senna. Consistent and flexible AP item holders can be units like Lux, Gangplank, Ezreal, Jinx, LeBlanc or Zoe. Before jumping into the early game options and their early item holders with their late game transitions, you should know that all of these comps follow either the slow roll or the default leveling pattern. If you want to know when you should ideally level up, then check out our beginner's guide in the description or on top. Let's start off with the easiest comp there is, supers. Slow roll comps are ridiculously strong so far this set, especially with supers, so you'll probably see the trio Gangplank, Lee Sin and Malphite in a lot of your games. Your goal when playing this trio is to 3-star as many units as possible, which is why you always want to slot in lower cost units as they're the easiest to find. Before jumping into the early game board, keep in mind that with supers active you could play a variety of slow roll carries. That could be an AD focused comp with 3-star Ashe and Renekton with Laser Corps, or Kayle and Fiora carries with more duelists. But if you want to make the supers units your carries, you'll have to focus on more hybrid and AP items and make Gangplank your main carry. So at level 4 you want to add in Kayle for some damage and activate duelists. Then stay at level 5 until you hit at least Gangplank 3 stars, whilst also slotting in another core unit like Fiora for example. Your next slow rolls will then happen at level 6, where you want to add in Yasuo to activate Duelist 4 and then 3-star your entire team before even considering reaching higher levels. So you want to go on a lose streak and get to 50 gold as fast as possible to start off that slow roll strategy. The best thing about slow roll comps is that your early item holders are most often also your late game carries, since you also look to spend lots of gold to 3-star them. As for your supers main carry, Gangplank wants a blue buff, Bloodthirster and Jeweled Gauntlet. For your AD item components you can use Ashe, Kayle or Fiora, with items like Rageblade, Deathblade and Runaan's Hurricane. Next up we have defenders and brawlers. There are lots of low cost defenders and brawlers in the game which makes playing this board fairly straightforward. For example, you could go for a complete 4 brawler opener with Renekton, Blitzcrank, Vayne and Lee Sin, which are all made of 1 and 2 cost units. If you drop an early copy of Riven, you can also slot her in there too, or even play a complete 4 defender board by having Wukong, Poppy and Red instead. These traits and units are pretty interchangeable, which is why for level 5 you can either add in a second brawler or a defender. The most important change for the mid game though is at level 6, where you want to add in Jax as your main carry and have 3 Mecha Prime with Draven and Wukong active. Then choose Jax as your Mecha Prime and give him a Rageblade, a Bloodthirster and a Giant Slayer. As this is another slow roll comp, you don't have another late game carry you have to transition, and simply save up gold again to hit Jax 3-star. The next one is the Anima Squad opener. The sooner you can activate Anima Squad, the better, since your units will gain stacking fame bonuses right from the very start. Jinx, Nasus and Sylas will bring that squad together. The 4th unit in play should always be your temporary tank Galio, as he'll add some more sustain with Mascot and mana generation with Civilian. Your early item holder and damage is obviously going to be Jinx, who's a pretty flexible unit that can wear a good variety of items, but attack speed with Rage Blade is really what we're looking for. On the next level, you want to add in another civilian unit in Sivir, whilst also making sure you're keeping a copy of Jinx and Galio on your bench. At level 6, you can then remove Sivir and transition the items off Jinx and Galio to your main carries, Vayne and Riven. Then you can push for level 7 and make 3-starring Vayne and Riven your next milestone. The best thing about this comp though is its items flexibility, because in the case that you get given a load of AP items, you also have the highest cost Anima squad unit Misfortune, who you'll want to play over Nasus or Jinx in the late game anyway. Next up we have the Ox Force and Renegade opener. The units with Ox Force origin gain attack speed that increases with missing health, and Renegades simply just deal more damage. So the units you want to play here are Talon, Sylas and Camille, who will form your Renegade core, and then either Fiora or Annie will activate Ox Force at level 4. The only unit that shares both these synergies is Talon, who will also be your early item holder and your carry. At level 5 you can simply add in something that synergizes, like a Blitzcrank. For your mid game at level 6 you want to add the remaining Ox Force units to activate that fort trait bonus. As this comp doesn't rely on any 3-star units whatsoever, you can simply look to follow the usual leveling curve and play that board up until level 7. Talon is going to be the item holder for your late game carry, Viego. They share the exact same traits, so it's very easy to transition your carries their items, without losing any of the synergies you were playing. You want to give Viego a Hand of Justice, a Dual Gauntlet and then something for some more sustain in either Edge of Night or Bloodthirster. The Laser Corpse opener is probably one of the strongest. Ashe, Renekton and Yasuo will activate the trait which grants all 3 a combat drone. These drones can proc and deal additional damage to enemy units, which especially in the early game can make a massive difference. At level 4 you should probably add in a second brawler to the front line with something like Blitzcrank, Lee Sin or Vi. Then for level 5 you want to add in Ezreal as a secondary recon to add more crit chance to your team. At level 6 you can add in Alistar for Aegis and some more defences if you're win streaking, or you can add in Underground with Kayle or Sona if you lose streaking. Regardless of your streaks, you should always use Ashe as the early item holder and carry. Rage Blade is by far the best item for her, then go for anything more offensive such as a Giant Slayer. Your early tank will be Renekton, and since his ult scales with health, you only want to make sure you can give him something like a Warmog's armor. Reaching level 7 you can then swap out the low cost Laser Corps and item holders Ashe and Renekton for a copy of the 4 cost Laser Corps, Zed and Sejuani. Another really consistent and heavy AP start is the Gadgeteen opener. When Gadgeteen is active you'll gain a powerful item every round, which will only last for 1 PvP combat. Having additional items in the early game can snowball your early fights pretty hard, which makes win streaking a lot easier. But to get those extra items you'll need Lulu, Poppy and Annie. Then add in Lux at level 4 for 2 Spellslinger and more damage, Rel at level 5 for 2 defenders and more tankiness, and lastly Yuumi at level 6 for 3-star Guardian and Heart 2, which will ultimately grant you more utility overall. As for early carries and item holders, use Lux or Yuumi for everything damage wise, with AP items such as Blue Buff, Dual Gauntlet and Rabadon's Deathcap. Then use Annie as your core frontliner with typical tank items such as Warmogs, Sunfire Cape and so on. This kind of opener makes it extremely easy to play a full Star Guardian or Spellslinger board in the late game, and there is no better late game carry for that than Taliyah. If you can't find Taliyah though, Aurelion Sol should also be your second thought, as he can wear any AP items just perfectly, and guess what, he also has an inbuilt Morellos in his ability. Finally, we have a more heavy AD start with Sureshots in the back and Mascots in the front. Galio and Sivir are your core, as both are civilians who will benefit your entire team by giving them more mana. You'll then add Mascot with Malphite to your team, who you can also use as an early item holder for basically anything tanky. And you'll be using Sivir as an early carry, with Rage Blade, Runaan's Hurricane and Last Whisper, which are the ideal items you can go for on her. Now, since you won't be rolling on lower levels, you just want to rush to level 6 at stage 3-2 to slot in 4 Mascots with Nasus and Alistar, and 2 Sureshot by adding Senna to your backline. It's worth mentioning that you should also hold onto a copy of Sivir on your bench to smoothen your transition at the next level, because as soon as you find a copy of Samira, you're going to sell that itemized Sivir and slot in the blank copy you held onto, to not miss out on Civilian 2. Every single one of these openers covers all potential reroll and late game carries, and will help you set up your late game right from the start. Let us know which one you prefer playing, and don't forget to check out the link below for our huge PC giveaway. Thanks everyone for watching and enjoy the new set. Take care.